Kartik Vat ki jai, Damodar Astakam ki jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Shakuju ki jai, Shri Purushottam Chaita ki jai, Shinga Bhagavan ki jai, Bhakti Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Kishore Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I offer my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Ashto Tarashata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I offer my Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of all of my Shri Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So yesterday we read the 2 chapters of 10th canto, where Sri Uddhavji has been sent to Vrindavan by Sri Krishna himself. And also Sri Krishna gave him a message to deliver, especially to the gopis. Personal message from Krishna to the gopis. And he also rode on the chariot. When Akrura came, do you know whose chariot he was riding on when Akrura came to Braj to invite on behalf of Kamsa, the cowherd people and Krishna and Balaram to come to Mathura?
Was it Francis?
Yeah, yes, it was a royal chariot. So, of course, Kamsa was killed. And when Sri Krishna sent Uddhav, Uddhava also came. I'm not sure if it's the same chariot, we can find out, but it was resembling the same chariot. And that's why, at the end of we read the 2 chapters, so at the end of the 1st chapter, the gopis were wondering, who is this chariot belong to? And then they were kind of asking themselves, could it be that Akrura has again returned, and he has not done enough damage to us, right? Even though our lives have been absolutely destroyed, our hearts have been completely devastated, but yet he wants to come back and take our flesh and perform yajna, they told. So these 2 chapters are full of the separation moves. And Srimad Bhagavatam has been manifested in this world so that the sadhaks of this world can begin to enter into the moods of vipralambha, separation. This is clearly told in Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, in Srimad Bhagavatam. Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj has emphasized this so much, that really Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission and his process that he has given to the souls in this world, how they can attain this greatest treasure of Krishna prema. And it is through the medium of separation. That topic is practically the most important topic in our efforts to hear and chant and study these shastras given by the 6 Goswamis and their line of acharyas. This is the topic. How to feel separation. Right? What is Sikshastakam? What are the 8 verses that Mahaprabhu gave? It's all culminating in extreme separation mood. Yugaitam nimeshena, chakshusha pravrishaitam, shunyaitam, jagat sarvam, govinda virahena me, viraha, separation. So the success of our attempt to do sadhana will be when we can even touch one tiny particle of these moods of separation. Srila Gurudev also told us he would mention this year after year when we would come for the Braj Mandala Parikrama. and going to all these places, hearing all the Leelas of Radha and Krishna, and with all of the Brijvasis for a whole month. So much Katha, so much Kirtan. But he said, actually, the success of your parikrama will be if you can even have one tiny little speck of these moods of separation. Isn't it, Tirthaji? Remember him saying like this? Yeah. So, I personally had this desire to read those 2 chapters, and although it was a little bit hurried, but I wanted to cover them. But I also would like, for my own benefit, and I'm sure that everyone else will also benefit so much, to actually go through those 2 chapters and the purports of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Because we're only skimming the surface by reading the shlokas. Of course, we've been primed for that, so something is there within us, planted there by our gurus. But still, I want to spend the rest of my life reading the purports of the Acharyas, personally. And Srila Prabhupada's purports. Can never read them enough. That's what I find. I find that Srila Prabhupada's purports are just, they're like in the realm of infinity, you know? Like there's no beginning, there's no end. They're just eternal, always flowing, always flowing. And each time it's fresh. Even if we read Bhagavad Gita 100 times, 108 more times before we leave our bodies, it will be fresh and new. But we also have the added feature now to be able to also hear the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on Gita, of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on Bhagavad Gita. Even Baladev Vijayabhushan, even his commentary is now available in a translation by perhaps Padmanabha Swami also, which is the commentary that Srila Prabhupada based his commentary on. So, what could be more delightful in our lives than immersing ourselves in these flows of nectar, which we don't possess them, you know, but our acharyas do. And they're spilling this over onto us. No doubt about it that Srila Prabhupada intended. He intended that when he would take up this whole great work of translating and writing commentary for the Srimad Bhagavatam, he envisioned 60 volumes. 60. So, and he also mentioned that 30, half of those volumes would be the 10th canto alone. Did you know that? Yeah. 10th canto is 90 chapters. That means there would be one volume for every 3 chapters. Because why? Because Prabhupada had the intention, no doubt, to give the commentary of the Acharyas. Not just only his purport. He wanted that eventually all of these Acharyas' purports would also be available. And, you know, our godbrother Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, of course he left this world some years back, but he had a whole group of younger devotees who he was training up in Sanskrit and so forth. And they've actually got this group moving forward to give the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. I actually have one of the volumes in my room that I picked up in Vrindavan before I left India. And what they're giving is the translation, like Srila Prabhupada used a very thick book in Bengali that had so many, at least 5. There was at least 5 major commentaries that he consulted with before he spoke his commentaries on his dictaphone. So it wasn't that Srila Prabhupada was just looking at the verse and then giving a purport. No, he was studying the commentary of the Acharyas. And only he knows, only Krishna knows how he came with what he deciphered from the commentaries to be suitable and very important to present. But it's an interesting thing to actually read those commentaries, because we've had this book, our Sarartha Darshini translation of the whole 10th canto of the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We've had this for many years now, you know, and it's just a wonderful, amazing thing that we have this. And we thank to Padmanabha Swami for the translation, and at that time Mahanidhi Swami did a great editing of it, very, very readable. So, but now this group, they're giving around 10 different acharyas commentaries, verse by verse by verse. And I think they call themselves the Matsya Project or something like that. I ran into one of them personally, and I was talking with him, and he was telling me about the project also. And so there are certain acharyas who are the major figures, and they write more voluminous commentaries. But then there's some acharyas who are added here and added there. Whatever they've given, then they're in there. So sometimes you'll have a purport that has 5 acharyas, and sometimes you'll have a purport that has 8, giving some commentary like that. Yes, so...
Is this on the Bhagavatam or the Gita or both?
This is the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam. They started with the first canto, I think the second canto as well, they started with that. But then they were requested so much by the devotees in ISKCON, particularly, to please give us the 5 chapters of the Ras Leela with all the commentaries. So they did that. They went to those 5 chapters. Just like Gurudev has his Ras Panchadhyay. His Ras Panchadhyay is commentary of...
Sanatana and Vishwanath Chakravarti.
Yeah, those 2. Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But they've also done with the other commentaries. So, of course, we consider that Srila Gurudev, whatever is coming from the absolutely highly realized Vrajrasik Mahabhagavad Vaishnava, is primary. But in addition to that, when we read these other commentaries, it's very edifying to our understanding. So, yeah, so eventually the whole Bhagavatam will be done like that. And not only that, but also I heard that Bhanu Swami he's already done the entire 12 cantos of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. You may have seen some of those volumes. He did the entire Bhagavatam a few years ago already. Well, what he's doing now is he's giving a separate entire set of the Srimad Bhagavatam, cantos 1 through 12, of each acharya separately. I think he wants to sell a lot of books also. So, yeah.
Should we be very careful though about something? Because I went through Bhanu Swami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu with Prabhupada.
Mm.
He made many mistakes.
He does. He does. It's a
Not
hurried.
very quickly.
It's true.
It's like
Also, the editing is not so good.
yeah.
It's a bit rushed, you
I
know.
think that was his kind of earlier work. He's gotten a lot better as far as.
Yeah.
Actually, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it was well edited. See, that's
Well
important.
better,
Because he's not got some good editor at this point for his English translations, so you see that in his books. But at any rate, I still find that it's very helpful, it's valuable information. And I don't think there's much danger at all, really.
Well, I asked Gurudev about reading his books. The one that passed.
Kusakrata.
Kusakrata.
Yes, I remember. You asked him that.
I asked him. He said, "Is it all right?" He told me, he says, how much is coming through is about 10%.
Yes, 10%, he said.
Said,
You may get 10% by reading that.
Then I asked him, I said, so is it hard to read? He said, yes, you can read it, no problem. He said,
Right.
Be careful.
Yeah. Yes. So we have two choices. We can continue on to Radhakund in our parikrama, or we can spend some time with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur going through those two chapters. Or we can do the Radhakund and complete the parikrama of Govardhan first, and then after do that. So it's a mood thing, you know. What is the mood? But once we start doing that, that's going to take some time, and we have to be dedicated. We have to be dedicated to, you know, studying it together and entering
Is it
into
possible
it.
to just pick out some verses like that?
Sure, that's also possible.
And then go on to the picking?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Or we can pick out some verses, and then
Like
we can
that.
go back and pick out a few more verses.
Say like the Assam, whole.
Yeah, right. Yeah, or even the moods of the gopis, what are there when they first met Uddhava and what they were speaking about.
Because if you go through the whole thing, it's
It'll take a long time. Right. So I'm just putting this forward, putting this out there. And, you know, but I would like to do it with a dedicated group of senior devotees, because this is really what the senior devotees should be doing. We could do studies of so many different books, and like Bhajan Rahasya, Madhuri Kadambani, all of these things we can do for the next 5-10 years until the world ends. You know?
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so I think we'll just today we'll go or maybe we'll do one purport, like Tirthapada Prabhu was suggesting. We'll do one purport. We'll do that particular verse that you just mentioned, Asamaho Charanrena, okay? And let me find it now.
It's 47.
Yeah, I'm right there. Here it is, right here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Asamaho Charana Renu Jashamaham Syam. Brindavane Kim api gulma rato shadinam. Ya dustyajam svajanam arya patam chahitva. Bejur mukunda padavim shruti vimrigyam. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of their husbands, sons, and other family members, who are very difficult to give up. And they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, which one should search for by the Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to be one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, because the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Uddhava said, quote, "As it has been proved that the gopis' love is the most rare to attain, it would be improper to desire it. Therefore, it was with lack of judgment that I have said, quote, that Mahabhav which those desiring liberation, the liberated and devotees like me, hanker after." So this is 2 verses before. That's why it's good to read everything in context, you know. So Uddhava is contemplating. This is the beauty of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that he brings you right into the verse and the flow and the reason why he's saying such and such. All of those things are revealed. So he's saying, as it has been proved that the gopis' love is the most rare to attain, it would be improper to desire it. Therefore, it was with lack of judgment that I have said, quote, that Mahabhav, which those desiring liberation, the liberated and devotees like me, hanker after. But now, with proper consideration, let me correctly express my desire, Uddhav, in this verse. I want to be born as some low shrub, creeper, or grass, upon which the gopis will place their feet. Asam aho charanarenu. So one may question, but what is that supreme excellence of the gopis' worship that you desire their foot dust rather than that of such exalted personalities as Lakshmi? Why? What is it, that supreme excellence of the gopis' worship, that you desire their foot dust rather than that of such exalted personalities as Lakshmi? Then Uddhava replies, I have never seen such intense worship where one can break all the mundane principles of religiosity, shyness, and sense control. Every night, the Vrajagopis give up all shame, their respectable upbringing and their religious codes, which are as hard as thunderbolts to break, and they run off to meet Krishna every night. At the time of returning home, they are completely oblivious as to whether they are following the right footpath or not. Then they will place their blessed feet upon my head, which will be present there in the form of some blade of grass. As for now, even though I pitifully beg for it millions of times over, they are not willing to put their feet on my head. So he's thought of a process that he can still get it. Therefore, my life will be successful only if I am born as a blade of grass in Vrindavan. So then he goes on in the next verse. Ya vaishriyarchitam ajadibir aptakamair yogeshwarair apiyad atmani rasa gostyam krishnasya tad bhagavata charanarvindam nyastam staneshu vijahu parirabhya tapam. The goddess of fortune herself, along with Lord Brahma and all the other demigods who are masters of yogic perfection, can worship the lotus feet of Krishna only within her mind. Goddess of fortune can do the worship of Krishna's lotus feet only within her mind and the others. But during the rasa dance, Lord Krishna placed his feet upon these gopis' breasts, and by embracing those feet, the gopis gave up all distress. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, in this verse, Uddhava again glorifies the Mahabhav of the gopis, which is inaccessible to Lakshmi and others. Uddhava said, indeed, the gopis relieved their mental anguish at the rasa arena by embracing the lotus feet of Krishna to their breasts. These are the same lotus feet that Brahma, Lakshmi, and others worship in their minds, but they can never touch directly. This point is explained in such verses as Yadavanchaya Shrir Lalanachara Tapo Vihaya Kaman Suchiram Drita Vrata. That's from chapter 16 of the 10th canto. When the Nagapatnis were expressing, how is it possible that our husband was able to get Krishna's lotus feet on his head? What did he do? Because even the goddess of fortune couldn't get that, right? And she did so much austerity trying. So, this point is explained in such verses as what I just read, which means, quote, desiring to touch your lotus feet, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all other desires and taking austere vows. And then there's the final verse of this. I love this verse because when I had the association of Srila Bhakti Balabhatirtha Maharaj, particularly in Russia and also in London for 3 days, and I noticed that whenever he said his Mangala Charan, this verse he repeated at the end of his Mangala Charana. Very important verse. Bande Nanda Vrajastrinam Padarenam Abhikshnasha Yasam Harikatod Gitam Punati Bhuvana Trayam. So, what is Uddhava saying here at the very end? These are the last 3 verses of his eulogy of the gopis. And here he's saying, Bande Nanda Vrajastrinam. I am repeatedly offer my respects to the dust, Padarenam Abhikshnasham, from the feet of the women of Nanda Maharaj's cowherd village. Nanda Vraja Strinam. Padarenum is dust, Abhikshnasham, desiring. And then he says, Yasam Hari Katod Gitam. Yasam Hari Katod Gitam. Udgitam and Harikatha means Harikatod Gitam. That means their Harikatha, their loud singing. Yasam Harikatod Gitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam, purifies all 3 worlds. The songs of the gopis. I repeatedly offer my respects to the dust from the feet of the women of Nanda Maharaj's cowherd village. When these gopis loudly chant the glories of Sri Krishna, the vibration purifies the 3 worlds. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining. After glorifying the gopis, Uddhav offers his respects in this verse. Uddhava said, I offer my respects to the foot dust of the cowherd women of Braja continuously, as long as I do not get birth as a blade of grass, which will make it easy to get their foot dust. Their loud songs about the form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna purify the 3 worlds, removing the contamination of ignorance. So in the phrase, Padarenam Abhikshnasha, the affix sa indicates perpetually. abhikshnasha. Not just 3 or 5 times a day, but perpetually. I'm offering my respects to them. In relation to this section, Vyas and other great commentators have concluded as follows. You want to hear the conclusion of Vyasadeva on this whole section? That's pretty important. And other great commentators, they concluded, among all the devotees, those who worship Krishna are the best. Since Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan. So that we can understand, right? Among all different types of devotees and worshippers of Bhagavan, those who worship Krishna, who is the Swayam Bhagavan form, they're the best. So that's clear. Among those devotees, which devotees? Yes. Among those devotees, those who are Krishna's immediate associates in his pastimes are more intimate because of their loyalty in following him. So that's the next category. Among these intimate associates, Uddhava is the best. For it is said about Uddhava, Tvam tu Bhagavateshu aham. That means, among the devotees, I am Uddhav. This is a statement by Krishna. That's from the 11th canto, 16th chapter. Krishna told, among devotees, I am Uddhav. Now, and he said also, Nodhavo nyapi man nyuno. This means Uddhava is not less than myself. So, in all of Krishna's different pastimes, whether it's in his Mathura Lila, Dwarka Lila, even Braj is included in this, but he's saying amongst all these, Uddhava is best. Despite his extremely elevated position, however, and that's important to understand in this context, who is Uddhav? If somebody doesn't grasp that, how exalted is Uddhav? How intimate to Krishna, all these things, then it's not possible to understand these 2 chapters at all. But if we can even get just a glimpse of Uddhav's position, then this all can be understood. So despite his extremely elevated position, however, Uddhav himself desired the bhav of the Braja Gopis, and he had the greatest regard for them. And according to the Vaishnava Toshani, Sri Uddhav did not offer such respect even to Krishna's queens in Dwarka. And among the gopis, Sri Radha is the highest. And following her is the highest achievement. So, then Uddhava, the descendant of Dasarha, took permission to leave from the gopis and from Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. And he bade farewell to all the cowherd men. About to depart, he mounted his chariot. As Uddhava was about to leave, Nanda and the others approached him, bearing various items of worship. With tears in their eyes, they addressed him as follows. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, Nanda Maharaj and other Brajvasis held various gifts, that means Nana Upayana, in their hands. During Krishna's Pauganda and his Kaishore ages, childhood and youth, they had collected many jewels, gold coins, and pearl ornaments, and during Krishna's youth, many clothes. Now in their feelings of separation, they lost interest in keeping these things, so they offered them as gifts to Uddhav. What a gift. That's mind-blowing. Krishna's clothes when he was small, Krishna's jewels that decorated his body. And now they are so bereft, their feelings of separation, they lost interest in keeping them in the house. They're giving them to Uddhava. Then Nanda and the other cowherds said, this is all they can say. This is all they can think about. What they're saying in the next two verses. They said to Uddhava, may our mental functions always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. May our words always chant his names. And may our bodies always bow down to him and serve him. Wherever we are made to wander about this world by the Supreme Lord's will. This is Krishna's mother and father and all the Brijvasis. They're not thinking of themselves as eternally liberated personalities from the spiritual world. No. Because this is Naravat Leela. They think that they're like the other conditioned souls. But what is their desire? No other desire. Wherever we are made to wander about this world by the Supreme Lord's will, in accordance with the reactions to our fruitive work, may our good works and charity always grant us love for Lord Krishna. It's their only prayer. Love for Lord Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, Nanda Maharaj said, quote, our dear, long-lived Uddhav, we, Krishna's mother and father, have been most hard-hearted toward our son. Even though he is a great ocean of beauty, good qualities and character, and we remain so even now. What are they thinking? We are very hard-hearted towards Krishna. We understand that the abundant affection and care we previously showed Krishna now appear to have been artificial, since even in his absence we remain alive. What are they saying?
If we really loved Krishna, we wouldn't keep him stay alive.
They have no love for Krishna.
Yeah, they're saying it's artificial. Whatever affection that we previously showed, this is how they're feeling. King Dasarat. This is in the purport, not in the verse. King Dasarat was actually the only real father in this world. Why? Because he immediately died upon hearing that his son Ram had gone away. Who are we in comparison with Dasarat? They're thinking, he's really a father. We're not. We, on the other hand, do not have even a trace of love for our son Krishna. Therefore, this omniscient son of ours has rejected us as unqualified parents. Being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has used his inconceivable ingenuity to make Devaki and Vasudev his parents instead. My God. Therefore, Yashoda and I should be completely condemned as the most unfortunate persons in the three worlds. Nevertheless, perhaps, in some future lifetime, we may become aware of Krishna as he is and become attracted to him. So in this way, Nanda Maharaj prays in these two verses. Nanda Maharaj's statement, quote, "May our minds take shelter of Krishna's feet," is a reversal due to great love. Actually, the mind and senses of Nanda and Yashoda were always absorbed in Krishna, but they prayed in this way. This indicates the extreme predominance of the sanchari bhav of dainya, or humility, within them. So we know that in the realm of rasa, there are various different bhavs rising and falling in the waves of the ocean of their praying. And the sanchari bhav is a mood that comes like temporarily and then it goes. So dainya means humility. And this is actually what they're feeling. That's why when we hear the great acharyas express their feelings of complete insignificance and even considering themselves to be offenders. Yeah?
No, I just said worthlessness.
Yeah, worthlessness, no value. That's actually their sanchari bhav of their praying. So this is what Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda are feeling. Moreover, it is the nature of those who possess Krishna prem in the friendly ras, the sakya ras, or parental, vatsalya ras, or conjugal moods, madhurya ras. It is the nature of those who possess Krishna prem in these moods to become indifferent to themselves as repositories. Repositories means ashray alamban, of their love. Because there's ashray and vishay. This is like one of the most basic divisions when you look at rasa tattva and how it's described by Rupa Goswami. So there has to be these two, vishay alamban and ashray alamban. So ashray means the shelter of this prem ras, and that is the devotee. And vishay alamban means the object, that is Krishna. He's the object of this prem. So to become indifferent to themselves as repositories of love for love's object, Krishna, Vishaya Alamban. Krishna, due to the extreme hopelessness they feel in separation from Krishna. Hence, in their excessive humility, they forget their own proper moods, and instead they take up the mood of servitude, dasya bhav. An example of sakya turning into dasya is as follows. Where sakya ras turns into dasya ras. When Balaram, near the end of the Brahma Vimohan Leela, thought that this Krishna, being aloof, is not even now confiding in us, he developed dasya bhav, Balaram did. And he said, Prayo mayastu me bharatur. That means, this must be the maya of my Lord. So he's feeling Krishna is his Lord and Master. Balaram. An example of dasya bhav in madhur rasa is as follows. Radha said, Ha nata ramana preshta dasyaste kripanaya me. You know this verse? This is the verse spoken by Srimati Radhika in 47th chapter of the 10th canto. That's this chapter.
That's what you say?
Yeah. Yes. So this is when Srimati Radhika exclaimed, Hey Nata, oh my Nath, Ramana Preshta, who are my most dearly, dearly beloved. Dasyaste kripanayami, dasyaste kripanayami. She's feeling now that Krishna has gone to Mathura. She wants to have this mood. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is citing this, and he's saying that Srimati Radhika is exclaiming, O Master, O Enjoyer, Ramana Preshta, bring this wretched maidservant to you. So she's addressing herself as wretched maidservant. And then another verse, the gopi, and the gopi said, Kvachid api sakata nakinkaram. No, nakinkarinam. Kvachid api sakata nakinkarinam. Does Krishna ever talk about us, his maidservants? We read that earlier, when the gopis were first meeting Uddhava and surrounding him. And they asked Uddhava, does he ever remember us? Does he ever talk about us, his maidservants? So they are addressing themselves as kinkarinam, as maidservants. Now the present verse gives an example of Dasya Bhav in Vatsalya Ras. The cowherds, headed by Nanda Maharaj, said, Manaso vrittayo nasyu, Krishna padam bhujashraya. May our mental functions always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. This is their prayer. However, although they spoke like this, even in a state of ecstasy, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda would never give up their parental relationship with Krishna and speak like Vasudeva and Devaki, who, due to being overcome with an awareness of Krishna's opulence, Aishwarya Gyan, said to Krishna, Yuvam nanaha suto. What does that mean? You are not actually our sons. That's in the 88th chapter of the 10th canto. 85th chapter. That's the Kurukshetra, where they met at Kurukshetra. And because Vasudeva and Devaki, they were overcome with an awareness because of Aishwarya Gyan. And they're glorifying Krishna and Balaram as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And they're saying, you are not actually our sons. But would Nanda and Yashoda ever say that? No. No, impossible, impossible, impossible.
At one point he says, even if he is God,
Yes.
he's still my son and I have to train him.
That's the one from the chapter with the cowherd men, when they were approaching Nanda Maharaj after Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill, and that whole episode. We used to do a play of that. Yeah. Because they were thinking, Nanda, we're really thinking that your son, he's been doing the most extraordinary things. We've seen him all along. Then they start mentioning, he killed this demon, and now recently he lifted up this hill for 7 days, 7 nights. We're thinking that he's definitely some very elevated, powerful personality. Maybe even he's Lord Narayan himself. But then what does Nanda Maharaj answer after they've been expressing all these things?
They also said you should not chastise him, right?
Yeah, they were suggesting to him that we don't think that you should treat him more respectfully because he's some kind of great, extraordinary personality. And then what did Nanda Maharaj reply?
Something about getting your milk teeth.
Yes, he said, we have heard by our folklore that the milk teeth of the cowherd men do not really come in until they're like 80 years old. Meaning that they're just like foolish young children, And then he begins to give various reasons to them why there's no possibility that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I've seen him since he was a young boy. I mean, then he started to name various incidences, like this boy, when he doesn't get his makan and roti, he lays down on the ground and kicks his arms and legs in a tantrum. Is that the symptom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And this boy, although he has plenty of makan and yogurt and everything in our household, but he's going here and there to other households and stealing from everyone. Is that the symptom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Huh? So he gives a few of these examples to them, and then they all go, yeah, Nanda's right. And then he says what you just said. He says, but even if he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has come as my son, and I will treat him as my son and chastise him so that he will grow up properly. So that's what's being expressed. Then Shukadev Goswami continued, he said, O ruler of men, to Maharaj Parikshit, thus honored by the cowherd men with expressions of devotion for Lord Krishna, Uddhav went back to the city of Mathura, which was under Krishna's protection. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the word Krishna Pali Tam indicates that even though Uddhav was very attracted to Braja, due to being fully devoted to Krishna, he returned to Mathura, which was being protected by Krishna. And Shukadev Goswami intends to criticize Krishna here. For if Krishna is protecting Mathura, why does he also not protect Vraja by coming there? So, in this way, Shukadev Goswami is giving his mood. Krishna, he needs to be chastised for this. So, what's happening?
The offering.
The offering now. And then after the offering,
the Astakams and Arti.
okay, after the offering, then we'll do the Ashtakams and the Artik. Okay. So that'll just be like, what, 5 minutes or something?
No, 10, 15.
Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And that is that, so the parents of Krishna, Yashoda and Nanda, they will not get into the same humility of Dasya Ras that the gopis even themselves will. Is there some correspondence to Chaitanya Leela in that? I know the Dasya mood in Chaitanya Leela is
Can you
direct.
take the mic? I forgot. Sorry.
The Dasya mood in Chaitanya Leela is specifically directed to Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
But is there some correspondence that Dasya mood, which is developed because of separation, is an indicator there with the gopis and their separation? In other words, they're both separation moods, and separation moods are specifically cultivated by the bhaktas in Chaitanya Leela. So is there some kind of correspondence that you can see that separation moods produce this humility of Dasya Ras, even with those who have had a primary relationship with Krishna?
What do you mean have had?
Have had or have,
So are you talking about the Gaur Bhaktas or
Both.
Krishna
I'm saying
Bhaktas?
that there must be, is there a correspondence that the gopis get into this mood because of separation, because of the humility that's produced, that they get into this Dasya mood, but that same separation mood is there on the bhaktas of Gaura Leela, so it also produces that humility and separation, but there seems to me that there must be some correspondence.
What do you mean by correspondence?
That they're both due to separation, a correlation, maybe is a better
Correlation.
word, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you mean by correlation?
That they're both experiencing separation,
Yeah.
and from that, the humility of having a dasha bhav at least. So, is there something to be understood that those who are bhaktas in Mahaprabhu's movement, because their natural inclination is to, in Krishna Lila, be in Madhura Ras, that at least in this separation phase, being in Chaitanya Lila, that they are that there is Rajat, a correlation. There is a relationship or something to be seen as something similar, almost.
In what way?
Separation producing the humility of feeling oneself just a lowly servant.
Well, I would say that, of course, in both of these Leelas, in Gaur Leela and in Krishna Leela, separation is naturally there. Okay? But there's still differences in their moods of separation. Because in Gaur Leela, the bhaktas who have their eternal relation with Radha and Krishna, and they've descended in Gaur Leela, they're not actually aware of who they are. Do you know that? They're not aware of who they are because of Yogamaya in Krishna Leela. They are not thinking that actually I'm Maharaj Vrishabhanu, like Vijayanidhi, Pundarik Vijayanidhi. He's not thinking like that. And actually Gadadhar Pandit is my daughter, Srimati Radhika. Right? So Gaur Leela has that special feature of that these eternal personalities have become bhaktas in a very simple environment of village life. You know? And so the same goes for the mother, the father, and so forth. So Yogamaya is acting in that way in Gaur Leela, but Yogamaya is also acting in that way in Krishna Leela. Right? So that correspondence is certainly there. And in Gaur Leela, when they feel separation from Gauranga Mahaprabhu, for example, like all the bhaktas come from Bengal every year to, take part in Rath Yatra and the 4 months of the rainy season, then they return again. And we can only imagine how much separation they must be feeling in their hearts as they're saying goodbye to Mahaprabhu. But they, nevertheless, are demonstrating, because they're bhaktas. These are bhakta avatars. All of the associates of Mahaprabhu, like the category of Srivas Thakur, they're bhakta avatars. They've come in Gaur Leela to actually demonstrate the mood of worship of Radha and Krishna, right? Because they're worshippers of Radha and Krishna. Of course, Mother Sachi and Jagannath Mishra have a family deity of Lord Narayan. Same as in Krishna Lila. But all of these personalities are originally there in Krishna Lila. But in Gaur Lila, like take for example, Kolavecha Sridhar. Kolavecha Sridhar has one of the deepest moods of humility. He is living in the most simple way. As a person who barely makes enough to maintain his body by making cups out of plantain leaves and selling them and like this. But what is he doing with that money that he gets from that? He's worshipped, with half of it he worships Mother Ganga. He worships Mother Ganga. And the other half somehow or other maintains his life. And this mischievous boy, Nimai, the son of Sachi, comes over here and harasses me all the time. And he, in fact, tries to steal my gourds from, or if he doesn't steal them, then he tries to debate with me or to negotiate and bring my price down, down, down. So Kolavecha Sridhar outwardly is very much upset But internally, he's so much in love with Gaur. So the way that the separation moods manifest in Gaur Lila is unique in its own way. We also know that there's the whole mood of audaryata, magnanimity, pervading all of Gaur Lila. And in Krishna Lila, madhurya. Sweetness pervades everything in Krishna Lila. But both situations are showing naravat, human-like pastimes. That's why so sweet. There's no Aishwarya at all. We just heard Devaki and Vasudev. There's some Aishwaryas there, but never in Braj. Not one single Brijbasi. Not one single one. You cannot find a single Brijbasi in all of Braj, either from the cows, or the trees, or the animals, or the gopas, whoever. They only know Krishna as the son of Maharaj Nanda, our beloved Krishna. Our beloved Krishna. That's all they know, is the son of Maharaj Nanda. And they have their own personal, individual relationship and attachment with that Krishna. But when the separation mood comes to devastate their entire existence and Krishna has left, now they become self-condemning. The mood of dainya, because of their praying, comes in a very deep way in them. So, in Gaur Lila, we also see how the devotees feel so much separation from Mahaprabhu. Look at Raghunath Das Goswami, who spent 17 years in Puri with Mahaprabhu, but under the shelter and guidance of Swarup Damodar Goswami. And when Mahaprabhu departed from this world, and Swarup Damodar also departed, Raghunath Das Goswami could not tolerate staying there at all. He could not even tolerate staying in his body. Could not tolerate it. Imagine how painful. So he journeyed to Braj with the intention, I will commit suicide by jumping from Govardhan Hill. But by the arrangement of the Lord, he first met Rupa and Sanatan. And Rupa and Sanatan did not have that same years on end association with Gauranga Mahaprabhu that he had. But when he came there to Braj, and he met them, and they saw what condition that he was in, they revived him by telling him Hari Katha from the books and all of that. And then what did he realize? Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj explained it like this. At that time, Raghunath Das Goswami became very surprised. He says, oh, Mahaprabhu has not left. Actually, he's not left. He is living like anything in the bodies of Rup Sanatan. So in this way, Raghunath Das Goswami now, the next phase of his life, was to teach all of us how to become a Rupa Nuga Vaishnava, how to do the bhajan to attain this great gift of prema. And he lived longer than them. He stayed very long at Radhakund. So built into both Gaur Lila and Krishna Lila, the separation mood is certainly there. What to speak of Mahaprabhu's own experience of separation mood. So, I don't know if that has covered or I don't know what.
Because their separation mood is, of course, with Mahaprabhu,
Yeah.
but it was also cultivated, their separation of Radha and Krishna. Raghunath Das Goswami is longing for this. All of them are longing for that. So there's also that separation mood that is there with the gopis.
They're longing for what?
For the seva again of Krishna. Just like Radharani's, they're both feeling a separation and feeling humility. And it's not just the separation feelings from Mahaprabhu, but simultaneously separation from Krishna and Seva and Krishna.
Oh, of course.
So,
That's their objective.
right.
Their objective, like the 6 Goswami, Sat Goswami Ashtakam, is describing very clearly there that they were, all throughout those 8 verses, how they were immersed in Gopi Bhav, completely drowning in Gopi Bhav, and how in great separation mood at the end of the Ashtakam, they're simply wandering around Braj and calling out in extreme separation mood, Hey Radhe, Brajadevike Chalalite, He Nanda Suno Kutaha, Shri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale, Kalindi Vane Kutaha. Oh, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Are you there next to Govardhan? Are you by the Kalindi Yamuna? Where are you? Where are you? Then it says, Gosantav iti sarvato, Vrajapure ke dair, Mahavivalo. Mahavivalo means extremely great. Their hearts were agitated, extreme, Mahavivala. Very, very agitated in this mood of separation and prema. Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shajiva Gopalako. So we enter into Krishna Lila through Gaur Lila. Yes? Yes. We enter in through Gaur Lila. There is no other entryway. And in Gaur Lila, these are our guides. 6 Goswamis. No one can follow Mahaprabhu in his moods of separation. Only we can take the essence of his moods and his feelings. But the 6 Goswamis, his immediate associates, they are teaching us by their own example. No one can touch Mahaprabhu's extreme separation moods, but he taught this. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Jiva Ki Jai.
I'm just remembering you had to go to the restroom one morning. And then you said, and now I know why the Goswamis gave up eating and sleeping.
Oh. Who said that?
You said it.
I did?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't remember that. Okay, so we did read some of the purports because of Tirthaji's suggestion. It seems like a good thing. So tomorrow we'll go on to Radhakund and Shyamakund, and we'll probably get stuck there for a while. Maybe Vilapa Kushamanjali might suddenly appear before us, and we'll just have to hear how Raghunath Das Goswami felt living on the banks of Radhakund.
So, in regards to those, the Taiva is revealed always. So what happened is, like, it becomes Dasyabhav. The Dasyabhav is acting like a Sanchari Bhav.
Yes,
It's becoming dominant over the Madhurya.
yes.
So just like in the verse Trinadati Singh, Trinadati Mahaprabhu is saying this. He's completely Madhurya. Here is human Dasya. So it becomes like a Sanchari Dasya. It's coming in like that. And that's why we follow Mahaprabhu and his Dasya like that. It's about
Yeah, because Tirthapada Prabhu has been in Vrindavan, in Gopinath Govan, giving class for over a period of months, every morning reading the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and also with Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, right, comparing it. And so he's become very, very familiar with all the concepts of the Rasa Tattva. So what he's just explaining is about how the Sanchari Bhav, which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentioned, it becomes prominent, but their Sthai Bhav, their eternal relationship, is always there. Yeah, it's still there. It's not covered. It's not covered. But the Sanchari Bhav is an addition to that, you know? I mean, I don't know how to exactly explain
Just
it.
like Nanda Maharaj,
Yeah,
his worshipful deities were too.
Narayan,
Narayan.
yes.
Yeah. Here he's saying, I still see my Krishna, my
Yes.
son,
Yes,
not Narayan.
right,
He's worshiping Narayan.
yes. Okay, Shri Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Uddhava ki jai, Braj Go